We want to talk about the fallout from the ICC's decision, in addition to so many other top headlines in the Israel-Hamas war. We're going to do that with national security analyst and expert Hal Kempfer, of course, retired Marine intelligence officer and co-host of the Strat podcast. He joins me. Hal, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. You saw there a little bit of Secretary of State Blinken taking questions on the ICC's decision today on Capitol Hill. What is a legislative fix to this? You know, if the United States is not party to the treaty that formed the court itself, how can the U.S. put sanctions on the court over this decision?
Well, Andrew, there's a number of different things we can do in terms of putting direct and indirect pressure on the court. Obviously, we can sanction individuals that may have been involved with it, particularly if we suspect that they were involved with wrongdoing, or maybe it's possible we have intelligence that some of their actions may have been driven by a foreign actor, so to speak, and that it wasn't a objective process by which they did it. This gets back to the essence of the court and why the U.S. is not part of the ICC regime, if you will, is because it tends to skew towards going after the big powers. You know, interestingly, Israel has a long history, and they've always been kind of the smaller power in the Middle East for many decades. And then they became the predominant big power economically, militarily.
Sure.
After the '67 war. And since then, the perception of Israel has always been that they're the big guys and that everybody else is the little guys. And they would turn around and say, hey, we're surrounded by all these other countries. What are you talking about? But now you see where the court has kind of said, okay, we'll go after them. We've always felt that from the U.S. perspective, that they would go after the U.S. And historically they have. They're always trying to find something wrong with whatever we're doing militarily around the world, and that's just been a constant process. So it's kind of it's a real pain, but there's also indirect things that we can do, addressing bodies like the UN and other international organizations to put pressure on the ICC.
Would that pressure include trying to get the ICC to drop the arrest warrant on the Israelis?
I would imagine at some point there's been a phone call made to the ICC saying, hey, knock it off. I would imagine that came from either the White House or the State Department. Somebody had talked to them and said, what are you doing? Yeah. You equated the head of state, the foreign minister of Israel, with these two violent extremist terrorist leaders in the same document. I mean, that's wrong-headed is putting it nicely. I can think of some other terms that might be used around the White House for that, but that's exactly what it is. So, yeah, that's I'm sure there's a lot of different ways that's getting communicated to the ICC, which is you really need to rethink this.
And Blinken had that very harsh statement on that decision yesterday. And, even you saw there some Republicans on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, like Ranking Member Jim Risch from Idaho, thanking Blinken for that statement. You always don't really see that on Capitol Hill, that Republican senators agreeing with and lauding a Biden administration member for their actions there. Hal, let's get to the news of the day. I thought this was really interesting. I want to put this tweet up here. This from Julie Pace at the Associated Press with the byline there of Jerusalem and the news. This is the report. Israeli Communications Minister orders the return of seized camera equipment to the AP after blocking its live video of Gaza. Now, Hal, I want to issue this disclaimer for our viewers. Here on Live Now from Fox, we rely so heavily on the Associated Press's cameras in Israel looking into the Gaza Strip. You have this one right here. This is in southern Israel looking into the Gaza Strip over the Gaza skyline. Now, from what I'm told and from what the AP is saying, this was not the camera shot or angle that was seized by Israel. That camera was in northern Israel near the northern Israeli-Gaza border. So, but earlier today, Hal, the Israel's communications minister ordered the return of this camera and broadcasting equipment that it had seized from the Associated Press. The Associated Press, we rely, like I'm saying, so heavily on them here on Live Now. Why? What went into this today? What does it mean for press freedom?
Well, what it says first off is that they reconsider what they did, and they said this is horrible. They're restricting access to the press, and Israel has always had a strong tradition. It's in their laws, freedom of the press and and very much in the same tradition as the United States has those rules, or basically, it's in our First Amendment, the freedom of the press. So that was one of the things they went back and said, this looks really bad. Now, I will give you the other side, which is what probably drove them to do it. That camera that they took down, and probably to look at all the camera angles, they're engaged in operations just over the border in the Gaza Strip, and they're engaged in operations further up north. And I have no doubt that they were doing, which they all do. They watch the news feeds of what's coming out of it. They're constantly watching to see what's being covered. That's something that public information officers or public affairs officers do as part of what their mission is. They probably looked in there and said, "Oh my, they're showing stuff that we're doing operationally, and that could actually give some valuable operational information or intelligence to Hamas if they're watching this too."
Okay.
And so I think what they did was they overreacted.
I see.
And said, "Quick, take it down." I've been overseas. I've been in war zones where we have media cover stuff, and usually we just say, "Hey, look, you're going to put people's lives at risk if you do this. So please don't do that." And I rarely have run into a situation where they don't seem to understand exactly what it is that we're trying to accomplish there, and they don't want to put troops' lives at risk by just getting a good shot. So that probably should have been a discussion rather than an action.
Yeah, I mean, Hal, even Israeli officials are opposed to this, including opposition leader Yair Lapid. He was quoted by Barak Ravid, who covers all of this so closely. Lapid said this, quote, "The confiscation of the equipment of the AP, the world's largest news agency, by Minister of Communications Shlomo Karhi's people is an act of madness. This is not Al Jazeera. This is an American media outlet that has won 53 Pulitzer Prizes. This government behaves as if it has decided to make sure at all costs that Israel will be pariah all over the world. They went crazy." I mean, that's coming from Yair Lapid, a very strong message here. What does it have to do with the news about Al Jazeera? I mean, the Associated Press says the government seized this equipment from a location in southern Israel after accusing it of violating a new media law by providing images to the satellite channel Al Jazeera. Now, we know Israeli officials have banned Al Jazeera inside of Israel due to this new media law. So it seems like more is going on here.
They made a big step. What they did was they said, "Oh, the feed goes to Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is banned, hence they can't have this feed." Welcome to the global economy. Welcome to the global news economy. That's kind of how digital information is transmitted all over the world. And once it's out there, it's out there. And this is one of those things where they quoted the Al Jazeera thing. I honestly, I have to tell you, when I saw that, I thought they're really searching for a reason to do this more than what it is. I really think what it was is the camera angle itself was picking up on things operationally that the IDF simply didn't want out there. And so they said, quick, find a reason to take that down. And they jumped on the Al Jazeera thing, which actually, in retrospect, has probably caused them more political backlash, if you will, trying to justify it with that than probably the real reason, which is they were doing something. Now, I will say this. They don't want to say, "Oh, you're picking up on operational details that would possibly compromise what we're doing." That really is a big signal to the enemy that we really need to watch this a lot closer. So they don't want to do that. So they came up with this. Obviously, I can tell you that Iran and other countries in the world are probably scouring whatever they picked up on to figure out what triggered the Israelis to take this action.
Yeah, I mean, the AP says, though, that they comply with Israel's military censorship rules, which prohibit broadcasts of details like troop movements that could endanger soldiers. And so you would have to imagine, much like Live Now from Fox is a client of the Associated Press, that's how we're showing you this live picture there in southern Israel looking into Gaza. I would imagine Al Jazeera is a client of the Associated Press. To your point, Hal, it just so happens as of May 5th, because of this new media law, Israeli officials closed down the Israeli offices of Al Jazeera. As you know, Al Jazeera, Qatari founded and Qatari based. And so it bans its broadcasts, it blocks its websites as of May 5th, Hal, in Israel. But it just so happens maybe, and I would presume this is the case, that Al Jazeera is a client of the Associated Press and vice versa.
Well, we had the U.S. had issues with Al Jazeera, and this was during its rather nascent years when we were in Iraq, and we felt, and we actually, before Iraq, we were looking at some of the reporting that was dealing with our operations in Afghanistan after 9/11, and there was a strong feeling that Al Jazeera was biased, and they were not explaining things in an objective manner as far as that goes. And certainly Israel feels the same thing. A lot of it with Al Jazeera for Israel was reporting that was coming out of the Gaza Strip itself, and that's what really triggered the actions they took on Al Jazeera. Banning them like that was because of the actions that what they were actually doing on the ground in the Gaza Strip with some of the reporting, and then how they were reporting the actions that were in there, and they felt it was very biased, it was unfair, and some of it was probably getting into that operational security issue again, on what they're talking about. But this is a bit of a stretch, to go after a third party like this and say, well, you can't do that because they pick up on this. And I when I saw that, I was going, how many other countries out there that maybe Israel doesn't like that much use the AP feeds as well? I don't have a complete list, but I kind of wondered about it.
Well, we're so thankful that we can keep showing our viewers these images coming to us from this region of the world that everyone is talking about, that is in a war zone at the moment here, and they'll continue to do that. Hal Kempfer, thanks so much for your time. We'll talk soon.